that was a big piece for me, is finally learning how to develop the tolerance and the safety and the trust to manage this and know that it would be just a wave. You have levels of activation that'll come up in your system, and they'll come up like this, and then they'll go down. When you can just be with them, that's why presence is so important. Because what happens for people is they'll feel the thing, and they're like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and they'll panic at this point, and they'll shove it back down, or they'll run away from it. You know what I mean? And they never get to see it complete itself. And when you can
Mm.
hold this anchored space and just be like, oh, okay, I'm curious. That's interesting, interesting, interesting. Wow, it's going up. Oh, and now it's going down. Okay, now it's just discharged. And now I've come back to safety again. It's almost like a rupture and repair process in your own system. And then you're like, oh, okay, I can tolerate that. Like like energy like expands and contracts all the time. I can witness it. I don't have to freak out about it. It just is. And look, now I'm safe again. I'm on the other side, and I can move forward in life. And if the next wave comes, I'll manage the next wave. But what would happen for me is like the wave would come, it would crash me down, and I would be like, I can't. Like I'd be suicidal after I'd have levels of activation that would come up in my system, lots of fear and panic. And I just didn't think I could handle life at all. And once I learned how to do that, it was like, well, there's nothing that can stop me. Like I'm safe in this world because I know how to manage me. I know how to be in connection with myself.
Welcome to Unbinding. We're Josh and Wendy, two fellow travelers on this journey of waking up out of our religious paradigm. We're navigating religious trauma and healing our spiritual wounds. So if you're not yet feeling free, well, come join us in learning how to just be.
So, welcome to another episode of Unbinding. Wendy's here. I'm Josh. Today, we're excited to be joined by our friend, Teresa Hobbs. Can you tell our listeners just a little bit about you, your professional, and then I'd love to hear like when you left the church as well. So if you can speak to that.
Yeah. Okay. So I grew up in Utah. I'm a former Mormon. And so that's part of my history. Went through, so my family wasn't originally, they weren't active Mormons, but I got baptized at like 10 and then kind of got caught up in the Mormon community because at that time it was like 90% Mormon around me. And if you weren't Mormon, then you were out. So I joined the church and kind of played that role from the age of like 10 to about 20. And in that time, I was surrounded by my best friends were the bishop's daughter and the stake president's daughter. So I had all of the influence of that culture. And at the same time, I felt like because my family wasn't active, that I was like the bad kid. I was like not fully accepted. And so I was sort of like playing a part that never felt right for me. And within that period of time, I also had a lot of scrupulosity. I didn't know a lot about like the full church doctrine because it was very scary for me. So it was a lot of fear, a lot of feeling like I didn't fit in, a lot of constant worry about whether I would, what kingdom I'd end up in, all the things. So I had a foundation of, religious trauma through the church. And then I left the church at 20. I remember I was at I worked at this river rafting company in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It was my first exposure to people outside of the church. All these people from all over the country were there. And I was like, oh my gosh, you can be a good person and not be a Mormon. And that's what kind of just like set me free. And, from that point, I started exploring just different spirituality, trying to figure out like what was true for me, and kind of moved on through my life. I also had like foundational trauma from childhood, and that I think played a role in, how I experienced the church and all of that kind of stuff. And so all of that was brewing in my system. And by age 25, I started getting my first symptoms of chronic illness. It was kind of like mystery symptoms, didn't really know what was wrong with me. Started getting like a lot of dizziness, a lot of fatigue, like these little like mini fainting spells. And it was really scary. Like I didn't know what was going on. And so I went to doctor after doctor after doctor and got all kinds of labels, Epstein-Barr virus, let's see, candida infection, all of the typical functional medicine kinds of things. Eventually I got a diagnosis of adrenal fatigue, and I just kind of, I spent thousands and thousands of dollars trying to heal at that level. not knowing that there was any other aspect to it. And so I did that until, let's see, I think there was a period of time that I actually got better for a while. I started doing like a protocol for adrenal fatigue. And over a period of like 3 years, I got a little bit more stabilized and I started taking on more, more responsibilities at work. And I got into a relationship and unfortunately I chose a bad relationship. And so therefore more trauma, more stress piling on my system and everything started to go downhill again. And over the next 6 years, my system just tanked. And it was like 2015. I was 38 years old. The relationship wasn't working. And so I left and completely crashed, just like became bedbound, like non-functional. The symptoms were like everything just magnified times 100. I had 30 plus insane symptoms. Couldn't get out of bed, I had to crawl to the bathroom, was sensitive to everything. I was sensitive to sound, smells, movement, temperature. I couldn't regulate my temperature. I had a difficult time digesting food, so I had gastroparesis, had sensitivities to every food. Like it was just an absolute nightmare. I had all these weird trembling sensations in my body and body shocks. And I was, sweating profusely 24/7, like in a cold room. Like my body was just so dysregulated. So I knew there was a nervous system piece. I knew it was related to stress, but I didn't know how to fix it. I also knew at the time that there was some connection to trauma and emotions, but I didn't understand how all that worked. So I just slowly did little bits at a time to try and heal. And I was, really committed and determined that I was going to heal. But I was also coping with living at my parents' home again in my childhood bedroom. So, like everything that I'd sort of gone through in my childhood, I was now facing again and back to this sense of being totally helpless and reliant on my parents who were wonderful. I love my parents. They were so supportive and so kind, but it also took a toll on them. And, so I was worried about them because coming from childhood trauma, I also had a lot of codependency, which I think a lot of people in the church also have. It's very common. You guys are nodding. And so even though I'm falling apart and I don't know what's going on with me, I'm still trying to figure out how to make my parents be okay so that I can be okay. Because that's my definition of codependency. Like, I'm not okay unless you're okay.
I,
So, yeah, go
I
ahead.
have, you've seen my book, haven't you?
I haven't yet. No.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to say up under Epstein-Barr, question number 8, what would I do differently if I was no longer bound to pleasing my parents, my
Mm.
family, and others? So feeling like you're in this house and your parents are caring for you, but also feeling under your old childhood patterns, not realizing that it's still binding you and connecting you to your childhood wounding while you're still feeling responsible for what a burden you're being on everybody. I just can't imagine like all of that has got to be so heavy for you. So I apologize for interrupting. I'm just
Oh,
looking under Epstein-Barr and going, oh my gosh, it's like so aligned with everything that you're saying with your fatigue and all of this. And so thank you for sharing that. Thank you for it.
I love that you said that because when at that time, do you know how I described myself? I would always say I feel like Sisyphus, like pushing the boulder uphill while carrying a backpack with the weight of the world on my shoulders. Like that is what life felt like. It was drudgery.
Wow.
And there was this huge weight of pressure of like I had to fix and take care of and manage and harmonize everyone in around me, and it was exhausting. And that really was, a huge foundational piece of what actually was driving my illness. So I love that you have that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, for sure. And so, you're in that moment and I didn't have all the information yet. I was gathering pieces of it. And I remember the first things that I did were like, okay, I've got like trapped emotions. I've got all this stuff. So I was doing the emotion code and body code and all that kind of stuff. And those things are great, but I don't actually view emotions that way anymore. Like from that space, I don't know. Like I still am on the fence of whether or not that helped or didn't help. I'm not quite sure. It wasn't the thing that eventually moved the needle for me, but it did give me something to focus on and do to feel like I was trying to make progress or is sort of, moving forward on some level. And yeah, and so it was a lot. It was a really hard first couple of years where I just wasn't functional at all. I lost the ability to work. I couldn't, and I had no income. So, I was just living on credit, which is really scary. My parents never have had a lot of money and they supported me a ton, but, they were tapped out at a certain point. So it got really stressful and scary. And I somehow just kept saying, I'll figure this out. I will figure this out. I don't know how, I don't know when, but, I'm going to keep taking one step at a time, one day at a time. And actually, it was such a great training ground for me, I'll say, because I struggle with process my whole life, like being able to just do one small step at a time. I always felt like I had to like take it in one bite or not at all. It's kind of all or nothing person. And I couldn't do all. So I had to focus on small steps. And I'm so grateful for that because now I have this knowing. It's like, oh, okay, there's a big thing there. And I can get through that big thing by doing one small thing at a time. And so I'm grateful for learning that. And I also think one of the things I learned by, I was stuck in bed and I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't read books. I couldn't listen to audiobooks. There was no distraction for me at all. And so you can't run anywhere. I couldn't even actually at the time, if I even daydreamed a positive daydream, like, kind of like escape through my mind and daydreams, I'd start to black out. So my system was so sensitized that there was no escape for me. And so I had to learn presence and I had to learn how to turn my mind off, how to choose my thoughts. And I had like my own biofeedback system. So, even though it was miserable and it was the worst experience and I would never wish it on anyone, I got a lot of things out of it that I'm grateful for. So, I'm trying to kind of bring this full circle to where I am now and why y'all are talking to me. Because eventually I figured out how to heal. And through that process, I learned a lot about the nervous system. So the things that actually landed for me, the things that actually helped me heal were learning about my nervous system, learning about my attachment system, learning about trauma and how to actually heal trauma and reconnect to myself, come home to myself, develop the ability to manage my emotions and sensations and activations and learn how to be like the centered, anchored witness for myself. And that has allowed all of the contracted, held energy, which trauma to me is, it's a bracing, it's a protection. And we're holding all of this stuff in. And the trauma resolution is really a gentle unwinding. It's when we sort of open our system up and let it come back into a natural flow because we are rhythmic creatures by nature. We have rhythmic breath, we have rhythmic heart, we have the seasons, like everything in life is rhythmic. And like trauma basically interrupts that rhythm. It contracts and shuts ourselves down and puts us into that sort of freeze state. And so as we are unwinding trauma, we come back into that natural rhythmic flow, but we have to learn how to trust it and how to let go and come back into rhythm again. And so it's a slow process, and it takes time, but like it's so liberating, I guess is the word, when you finally get back in touch with like who you are and you learn to trust life again. For such a long time, I didn't feel safe to feel safe. And I don't know if it resonates with any of you. Like, did you ever have in your own experiences those moments where you just didn't feel safe to feel safe? Like letting go or trusting didn't feel okay. Does that resonate with you, Josh?
It does. Yeah. Well, I didn't know what safety even felt like. And we've talked about this before. As a man, like just I wasn't safe anywhere. I wasn't safe in my body. I wasn't safe in my room. I wasn't safe with people. I wasn't safe by myself.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. And it's a process.
It is. I honor you in your journey, though, about how you take this epic moment in your life and you turn it into this pivot into basically hyper tuning into your own body and allowing it to be this fine-tuned instrument where you get to identify like what's going on for me and what is for me, what's not for me. And even though it was such a challenging experience for you, how learning to connect deeply into your body has tuned it into this instrument where you can recognize the energies that are all around you, where most of us are really desensitized to that, and we're desensitized to our emotional body. And you taking that route of saying, okay, how do I fix it? Or how do I get relief? And that whole process, is arduous as it must have been, that you turn it into this skill set. And not only that, you share it with other people and teach them how to do the same. And so I just want to honor you in that journey and taking that, what looks like a malfunction, and turning it into your gift. And it just fascinates me. It makes me so excited that there are people that are doing such things instead of, playing the victim and just giving up. And
Yeah,
you do
thank
that.
you. That's awesome. I appreciate that. And I it's the same. Like I was listening to your podcast, and I'm like, it's so cool to me that like people are opening up and wanting to sort of expand and share this with other people, because everybody's hungry for it. Everybody, we're all kind of in this place. Nobody has really been taught what it means to connect to yourself or have emotions or have needs or any of this stuff. And I think people, everybody has the thing that wakes them up, that they finally hit that wall for themselves. And I always look back and think like, my God, did it have to be that bad? Like,
Right.
what, right? Like I had to face plant. And so I'm always like, if I see somebody and I see him going close to the edge of the cliff, I'm like, slow down, stop. Let me tell, like, I can save you. But sometimes people have to go over the cliff, and we just have to allow that. But it's, I'm grateful for it now. But again, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It sucked. But it was an opportunity. And so, I work with clients now, and I'll kind of come full circle. So there were different things that helped me, and it was a really slow process. There was no like one modality that I was like, oh, this fixed me. It was small little things over time, and I learned different things about myself, because there's like the mental level. You have to sort of change all your belief systems. You have to figure out like, oh, I have needs, and needs are okay. It's okay to have needs. Like you have to understand how to even touch in and know what your needs are. And by the way, this is a lifelong process. I don't feel like any of us ever like arrive at some place. I think that we're continually journeying and going deeper and finding out new things about ourselves. So I always try to tell people like I have not arrived anywhere. I'm still learning and growing, but along the way I've learned different aspects that I think are really important for people to sort of start the process of getting to know themselves and uh, yeah, just learning to validate and honor who they are and know that it's okay to be human and that we don't have to fix ourselves. That's the thing too. I always say that to my clients. Like it's not about fixing yourself at all. There's nothing wrong with who we are. It's just about learning to take off the mask and learn how to come back to ourselves and be more authentic. But so there are all these different layers that I was working with and still am working with. And so there was a point in my process when I was like, I really want to start helping other people. I want to, support other people along this process. And so I knew I really wanted to do like a trauma informed coaching certification. And so I found a really great one that was trauma recovery coaching certification. And from there, I learned, I did another modality called the pain reprocessing therapy, and that's geared towards helping people turn off pain signals and other symptoms like chronic illness symptoms that are actually turned on by your brain. There's a term called neuroplastic condition, and people who've been diagnosed with things like chronic fatigue syndrome or sometimes fibromyalgia or different pain syndromes may have gone to the doctor and they've run all these tests and the tests come back negative and there's nothing that they can point to. Like they're like, we just don't know why you feel this way. You've got all these problems and we can't tell you why. And they will sometimes say, well, it's all in your head. Or you have family members that'll say, oh, it's all in your head, which I got lots of that because there's no definitive, diagnostic that comes back. And there's actually a term called neuroplastic symptom or neuroplastic condition, which simply means that the brain turns it on. That does not mean that the symptom is not real. It is 100% real. It is truly a physiological thing happening, but it's something that the brain is turning on because the brain is perceiving there's danger, and it turns on a signal, whether it's a pain signal, whether it's fatigue. It can be GI issues. It can be your immune system, all kinds of different symptoms that your brain can turn on because it thinks that there's something dangerous going on and it's trying to protect you. So just like if you were to break your foot, or let's say you sprain your ankle, I'll use that. Your brain turns on a pain signal to let you know that there's an injury in your foot. But the brain, like the pain is not actually coming from your foot. It never comes from your foot. Pain is always originated in the brain. And what's interesting is that people who've had a lot of trauma or a lot of stress in their life, they have a brain that's really, really hypersensitized. So they have a brain that is constantly scanning for danger. It wants to make sure it does not miss anything because it wants to make sure it's going to protect you and keep you safe. And when you have a brain like that, guess what? Sometimes it misperceives danger. It can actually think that there's something physiologically wrong with your body and turn on a signal in order to try and let you know that there's something wrong. And sometimes it's not always real. No, not real. I don't want to use that word, but sometimes it's not always accurate. So I'll give you an example. So I think you guys know that like emotions are felt as sensation, right? Emotions show up in the body as sensations. Whenever we feel an emotion, we feel it in our body. If we've never learned how to work with an emotional sensation and we don't understand that, our brain can pick up an emotion in our body and think it's something dangerous and turn on a pain signal or turn on fatigue or turn on like the immune system. It's absolutely wild, but that's like so common. And I would say everybody in the world has had a neuroplastic symptom at one time or another. It's very common, but there are people who tend to have more susceptibility to it. And those are people who tend to be highly sensitive, who have had a trauma history, who have had a lot of chronic stress, that kind of stuff. And so that's ultimately what I realized I had. I had what like a neuroplastic condition. I had chronic fatigue syndrome, and all of my many, many crazy symptoms were actually turned on by my brain, which was misperceiving a whole lot of trauma and stress and chaos in my body as dangerous. And it was trying to get my attention. And I just didn't know that. And so what I learned through the modality called pain reprocessing therapy is how to turn those signals off, which is so cool because you use this concept of mindfulness and something called somatic tracking, where you kind of drop down in your body and you just sense into whatever sensations there, whether it's a fatigue, because fatigue shows up as a sensation, whether it's a pain sensation, whether it's, swelling or like an immune reaction. You just drop into the body and sense into it from this whole new place of curiosity. You take away any judgments, any labels about what you think it is, what you think is causing it, and you just notice it. You just witness it. And it sounds totally kooky, but the power of that is, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It can completely turn off the symptom like that. Like, and you'll be thinking like, wait a minute, I was in so much pain and now all of a sudden it's gone. Like, how did that even happen? But that's the mind body connection. It's wild. So I geek out on this stuff because the more I've studied, the more I've worked with people, the more I've seen this happen over and over and over again. And it's just unbelievable to me. And so that's what I do today. I'm a mind body coach. I work with people mostly who have, a history of trauma and who also have chronic illness symptoms. Sometimes it's chronic pain or different syndromes or, things that they've been struggling with for decades sometimes. And they've gone to doctor after doctor who've told them basically there's nothing I can do. This is a lifelong condition. And it's not. There is a way to reverse it. So that's a lot of a spiel. Do you guys have any questions?
I love it all. I do have a question. I geek out on this stuff too. So we could just talk and talk about it forever. I've been doing this for over 20 years now. And so it's just my favorite conversation still, because we're still just in this process of discovery about how our emotions and how our mind and how our nervous system and how it all operates together. And navigating all that as human beings, and breath work and
Yeah.
going back into past experiences and trauma, all of it just absolutely lights me up. I did have a question though when you were explaining your experience in church and not being super active, but like maybe I think you mentioned the church doctrine was scary for you.
Yeah.
Like what was scary for you? Like it's almost sounded like it was so scary that you did not want to become too involved.
Yeah. Well, I just got a
Uh,
creepy feeling of it. So I remember, I've never read the Book of Mormon. I think I read like the first chapters because the missionaries baptized me. So, they come and they tell you to read the Book of Mormon and then they tell you to pray and they tell you what we're supposed to feel. And I kind of really wanted them off my back because, we sort of saw them as like these outsiders. But then I was like, well, I might as well, do what they're saying. And, but I don't know, it just always felt creepy. I never understood it. It didn't make sense to me. It wasn't normalized in my family because growing up, my parents didn't normalize the scriptures and the doctrine and stuff. And I remember my best friend, she came from a family of 11 children, like so LDS, like by the book, rigid LDS people. And they listened to every conference. And I would go over there sometimes and I'd just be like, oh my, like the voices, the cadence of their speech just made me feel gross inside. And so I was always trying to run away from it. And in addition, like I always thought I internalized myself as having done bad things. And, and I became so like, oh my gosh, is this bad? Is that bad? Do I need to talk to the bishop about this? Like, like I was constantly scrutinizing myself. And then I was terrified because I'm like, well, I can't talk to the bishop because then the bishop will know things. And then what if he tells somebody else? And so there was just never any safety, no safe place. And so, yeah, I was always afraid of being sort of found out, trying to fit in, but always feeling like I really didn't. And then, yeah.
I'm like sensing, I bring this up because a trained nervous system, somebody who is born into it and marinated and baked into it, the gospel sounded like comfort
Yeah.
and like home base. When things are going really weird in the world, go back to reading your scriptures, get to church, say your prayers, get into back into the groove of your church training. And what I'm hearing from you is that you have an entirely different life. And when you were introduced or exposed to this kind of um, doctrine, that it felt like terrifying and caused the scrupulosity. It ignited like this critical self reflection and am I good enough? And it felt even then it sounds like you have a sensitive nervous system. And how were you supposed to know you had a sensitive nervous system at that time? But your nervous system is just like oscillating, going, "This is not for me, not for
Yeah.
me." And how the contrast between the two is just really fascinating to me. That you have like this really sensitive nervous system where a lot of people, I myself, I don't feel emotions. I have to teach myself to feel emotions. I can articulate emotions,
Hmm.
but I haven't felt it in my body. That's why I wrote the Healing Questions Guide for people who are not feeling it in the body because it's
Wow.
been severed on some level. And so I just find this really fascinating, that there are bodies that are hypersensitive to that and they're hyper tuned to that. And then there's others like myself who just feel kind of dead to it, and you have to explain it and I have to understand it, but I don't, many times I don't feel it.
Yeah. Well, here's a question for you. Did you feel things that you were told to feel? Did you feel the spirit in church? Did you feel the what do they call it? The bosom thing? The I'm like
Yeah, the burning in the
the
bosom.
burning is a bosom.
Uh, to be honest, no, I guess the thing I felt most is when I was bearing, and I think this is, if I look back, it was really like conditioning. When I go to bear my testimony, I would watch people bear their testimony, so observing it, and I'd watch them get like maybe verklempt or it's just some emotion that's coming up to them. I wasn't sure what the emotion was, but I knew that cue when I talk about Jesus and when I talk about my testimony, I need to feel something deep inside of me that is like so I don't know how to describe the feeling that I caused myself to feel, almost in an effort to convince people that I had a connection to Christ.
Yeah. Interesting. So you
but it was
mimicked.
fabricated, and it felt,
Yeah.
looking in retrospect, it's performative.
Yes. Yeah. It is, and that's part of why it was really hard for me in the church because I couldn't perform because I hadn't practiced enough.
Yeah.
So everybody else could do the performance. I was terrified to be called on to say a prayer. I was like, I don't know the cadence of the prayer, like and so I would like turn my body away, like you're in Sunday school and they're who wants to say the opening prayer, and I just be like, please, please don't say my name, because I just didn't want to get called out. And it was just so difficult for me. I also, like, I did have definitely had a sensitive nervous system because I was painfully shy as a kid. I mean, like people would ask me my name and I would like whisper it because I was too embarrassed to even say my own name. And then they'd have to ask me like 5 times. It was just torment. So, were you a active, like extroverted child? Were you?
Um, I was like a poster child for the church.
Wow.
White, fertile, yeah, I lived it true blue down to my cells.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting how we can have such different experiences, within it. And had my parents been active, I probably would have had that sense of safety, um, and familiarity with it. But
Well,
for
I
you,
think there a lot of my clients will say, there's something, even when I was younger, I didn't feel right. And I'm like, really? When I was younger, I'm like, this is my safety. This is my home. So if I feel uncomfortable, I need to dive deeper into the gospel.
yeah,
And it worked so well for me because I did fit um, the ideal poster child for an LDS woman.
yeah,
And so I never felt out of alignment. And when I did feel out of alignment, then I returned back to home base.
gotcha.
And so,
And
yeah,
yeah,
a lot of my clients will tell me, like, I never felt right about this. And when I was 8, I knew this was wrong. And I was like, not tuning into any of that. I'm like, oh, this is what we do. Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'm just looking such a people pleaser.
yeah,
And my confidence was developed by my capacity to comply.
yes,
It's like I mapped on and said, okay, you do this, this, and this, you get praise, you get promotion, you get protection. That's my plan.
yeah. But that's what the church teaches you to do. Obedience is everything. So, and it, we just did a podcast on this, like, from obedience to integrity. Obedience is all about suppressing everything you feel in service of the system
Yes.
and disconnects you from your own sense of integrity, which is, we define integrity as congruence, like where things feel right. And you didn't even get a chance to know what feeling was, like what your
Yeah.
own feelings were. And do you relate with that, Josh? Because does Wendy's experience seem similar to your experience in the church as well?
Yep. That's very much. I was just so in that I was just do it harder, do it better, do it more. There
Mm,
was no tuning in. Does this feel okay? Is there any, like, there was no, they taught us how to confirm testimony, but
yeah.
there was no way to disconfirm. There
Yeah.
was no way to check for a no because the no was related or connected to Satan.
Mm,
Well, and I think too with safety, we associated our obedience with safety.
yeah.
And so if I assign safety to peace within my body, then anything outside of that felt unsafe. And so I would return back to the safety, which was the indoctrination. And so it really creates such a thick insulation to mapping onto anything outside of the gospel periphery. And so I don't know, the more I look at it, the more embedded, if you will, the technology, the psychotechnology was within my mind and how it was curated and formulated to be so compliant, almost hypnotic and robotic. And now I see myself just so much more animated and so much more feeling, so much more in my body. I mean, I was afraid to even touch my body.
Yeah.
Um, or to be seen, parts of my body to be seen at a certain age. I developed that. And so it's just so fascinating
If you just look at the as a nervous system, not as Wendy, but as here's a nervous system. Let's train it conditioned to comply, to give its money, to have many children, to return them back into the system and create this cycle of human, I don't have another word for it, but human loosh.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like they're just siphoning our energy, our resources, our essence, our everything. It was like ownership of the divine being that I now recognize myself as. And it was all mapped onto and almost being sucked out of me on a collective, very intentional, it feels intentional system of control.
Yeah. Here's a question for both of you too, and this circles back to like the mind body stuff. So that siphoning, did you feel like now that you're out and you have a different sense of connection to yourself, do you feel a different level of energy, a different level of vitality, a different level of like physical health?
Well, that's a good question because the quality of energy that I feel now, I have a lot more vitality than I did while I was in. I had I've had many surgeries, a gallbladder, appendicitis. I did experience adrenal fatigue. I was sick a lot with things like pneumonia, and I haven't had any kind of sick. Like I might get a cold. I got some COVID because I was sat next to a guy on the plane, but like that's all I
Mm.
experience right now. If I go a little all out and dance, I might throw out a joint or a back or something like that, but then I replace it and I'm totally fine. But I do know energetically in my pictures, it is absolutely observant.
Mhm.
Like my energy now is a complete different quality than it was
Yeah.
while I was in. And when I go to church, they all look like they're hypnotized, like on a puppet string, if I could explain it energetically. It's like they're just being it's more like an etch a sketch. Like when the magnet touches the screen, they'll go wherever the magnet goes.
Yeah.
Just like, woo, what am I seeing?
Yeah. What about you, Josh? Did you have a difference in your vitality before and after?
Yeah, I love that question. So for me, my experience, there was so much shame to my whole existence. And so the more shame leaves my body, the more pure me I feel like. And there's this level of contentment. And then I have rage that comes online. And before, rage was Satan. And so I had to pray harder and get rid of that. And now, like, I love my rage. Like, I love that it comes online and it's like a messenger. It's telling me when truth is not present or when some form of my value is being crossed. And
Mm.
so instead of like, oh, I'm bad for having rage, I'm like, I'm fucking feeling rage and I love every moment of this. And so like, yeah, and the way I describe it is, and I've shared this on a different podcast, but it's like a starfish
Mhm.
that was meant to have all of the legs grow fully, but as a Mormon, I was just like the is it the head in the middle? I don't even know. The middle the
The
middle
middle
part.
part with no fingers.
Yeah, I had like this little nub and this other little nub, and like maybe I don't know what side, my service side was like longer or something. And so now that my rage is like coming online and my sexualness and my pleasure and um my playful side, and it's like all of these are just starting to grow and grow and grow. And that, speaking to your point of that, it never ends, right? Like I feel like that's what's happening is I just keep growing these legs and I'm like, oh, I can grow that one too. Okay, let me see what that feels like.
Wow. I love that. I think that's so beautiful. Like that's just such a cool thing, and to know like to look back and see how disconnected from any of that, we can be at a certain points in our life. And then to yeah, it's almost like a whole new world to explore. And I the more I've come into connection with myself, the more excited I am to like what's next in life. Like what can I discover about myself, now? And it's really cool. It's whereas before I think life was just about drudgery and just doing the next thing because you didn't know that you got to really have choices. You didn't know that, it was just all about sort of what was expected of you. Um, yeah. And now I think like, oh, well, what do I want to do? What fulfills me? What makes me feel connected? It's a whole different thing. Uh, so I love that. I love hearing that. That's
I
really
think
cool.
what you're talking about also comes out in some of my clients, and you kind of mentioned this. Like one thing I'll ask, and specifically women, I'll ask them, "What is it you need?" And then I don't respond. I just wait and let the weight of the silence. And then what comes up is tears.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's not tears because they figured out what they need. It's tears because they actually don't know. And this dawning on them that I don't know what I need. I certainly don't know how to ask for what I need, but I don't know what I need. Um, or what makes you happy? And they usually say, when my family is happy, then I'm happy. I'm like, no, what makes you as an individual happy? And they wait and they try to tune in, and then they're trying to please me because they're like making me wait so long. and then and then they finally just it usually comes up in tears and like I don't know what makes me happy. And so when we're talking about the starfish and how one is underdeveloped, it's like we have been denied access to what actually brings us joy by being told that the church and the covenant path is the only pathway to joy.
Yeah. And I think most women, even outside of the church, are taught this.
I
We're
would
taught,
agree. Yeah.
yeah, our needs don't matter. Like we have been, women have been so objectified and we're here to serve men and to play certain roles. And we have no idea what we need, what we want, what's authentic to us. Um, yeah, it's a cultural thing, especially in Western culture.
Yeah.
And it's been going on for a very, very long time.
It reminds me of the question that Josh wanted to ask before we started recording. Do you
Yeah,
remember?
I'd love to talk about because there's known studies with autoimmune in women and how much women are diagnosed at a higher rate than men. And like, what would you say from your work with people, with your training? Like, where's the root of that, or where's that coming from?
I think it comes from a lot of places. One place is women have less safety in general. So we are all, the question, the popular question of like, who would you rather be alone in the woods with, a man or a bear?
Mm-hmm.
you know, Most women are like a bear. Um, I just think women don't have as much safety. I think we're more vulnerable. So that's one thing. And because of that, I think that that's part of what drives our need to fawn and suppress and people please. And we tend to be. I mean, I think a lot of men have codependency too. In fact, I don't think there's been a single person that I have coached that did not have codependency, male or female. But I see it a lot more in women. Um, because yeah, we're taught that that's our job. It's our role to make the men happy. Look back at like the 1950s commercials where they're telling women to like, have a drink ready when your man gets home and get your hair done and, make a meal and make everything perfect. Like it was supposed to be like, he's the king and he needs to come home to this space that's it's all perfect. And then what's happened to women is, there's that role that they're supposed to play, but then they start coming back into the workforce, right? And so now women are having, they're working and they're having children and they're trying to be perfect for, and they're trying to show up sexually, like all these different things. There's so much pressure on women to be a certain thing. And also because of the way that we've shifted how families are raised, we have these like nuclear families, which are in isolation. So women don't get help with raising kids, that they are like on their own, you know. There's just so many different layers and pressures on women. And I see it with men too. Like men who come to see me who have codependency are the type that are like, it's all on me. Like they typically have an underfunctioning partner at home and they have carried everything and they can't let go of things. And so, but that's a lot, it's more rare, but I still think it happens. I think it depends on personality, but overall, I think women are more likely to sort of play out that pattern and to have a lot of self-denial and well, and then also there's another layer of, you know, women are have this pressure to look a certain way. And so I think there's a lot of self-hatred that women have. And I think autoimmune in particular is about self-hatred. It's about, you know, being against your own body. And so that's a big thing.
Yeah, all of that. And I think as we follow that pattern of women rising above this place where now we're in the workforce and we're still taking the mental load and we're doing all of these things, we've onboarded into becoming this very highly functional beings, and we can do it all. And then to introduce a man into that field, it's almost like, why? If you're not going to add to my life and I'm doing it all already, why would I introduce a person into my life that's not going to help me with all these things?
Yeah.
And it leaves men like, what are we supposed to do for women? And unfortunately, women doing all the thing has caused men to lose their fight.
Yeah.
Like that fight and that go and conquer and go get them and I'll protect you. And it's like it's not there. And for me, for a lot of men, I'm not saying all men, not saying all women. I'm just saying like there's a systemic thing going on because of the systems that we've been programmed under have now caused women to be very high functioning and very observant. And now that we have structures to understand what abuse is, that we can now call it out. And for men and women, we both have the new structure to call out toxic relationships. But what I feel is missing is that I feel like patriarchy now is starting to reveal that it has robbed men of their fight.
Yes, 100%.
And to me, that is so sad. It's like, what am I fighting for? And just because we're not in war all the time and we're not, you know, trying to till the land and do all these things that men used to do, it's almost like, what do I fight for?
Yeah.
What do I activate that masculine passion and energy for?
Yeah, I think patriarchy has been a massive disservice to men as well as women.
Absolutely.
There've been a lot of ways that because it's been hyper masculinized. Like I think that we have a sort of balance of masculine and feminine, and the feminine has been sort of railroaded as like useless. It's not helpful, and so women have taken on more of that masculine energy. And you know, and then you've got two people that are holding highly masculine energy, and like there's no place for the man to have a role anymore. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting because even when I work with women, I'm having to sort of reintroduce like the feminine principles, you know, and to normalize them and to be able to say like, look at how beautiful this energy is, like to be able to say like, you know, sitting in the unknown. And it's all the things that actually end up healing people are that come from like that feminine energy, like the unknown, the space of gestation, the softening, like all of that stuff. Yeah. So I think that as a whole, both men and women are out of balance in both our masculine and our feminine. And like, I don't know, I'd like to ask you that, Josh, because like, I feel like this is something that you've spoken a little bit about, like sort of being able to come into like more of your feminine energy, but do you feel like it's also allowed you to have a healthier balance with your masculine?
Yeah, it's been both. I was thinking about what I'm fighting for right now, and it feels like I'm fighting for my authenticity.
Mm.
And and that's where that sacred rage comes online, where it's like I'm choosing to show up as me, and
Yeah.
that's enough. And it feels like as that fire comes online, I now have access to my voice. And then my voice wants to speak out about things that are harmful. And then that's that protection.
Yeah.
And so that's how I've been showing up on Facebook lately. And it's like the opposite of the old me never did that. I was very agreeable, just appeasing, the peacemaker, very kind to everyone. And so now I'm speaking up against systems. This, Mormonism in particular, because that was my experience. And so I'm speaking up with this new place of fire and a desire to protect. And some people don't like it.
Yeah. But how does it make you like that's what I think is really cool is it's like trauma sometimes too is the absence of protection. It's like,
Mhm.
it's basically a situation where we couldn't fight or flee and we were sort of helpless and trapped. And so having that fight energy come back up in our system uh, is is sort of brings back this sense of safety. It's like, oh, I can protect myself. I can choose to enact, and hold my boundaries and push outward so that I'm not taken advantage of. I'm not harmed. You know what I mean? And so I think it's a really important part of the process to go through to be able to find your voice again and use it and know that you can, yeah, you can call out what wasn't okay. And yeah, some people aren't going to like it because they're not ready for that. They're not ready to move beyond compliance and into uh, the acknowledgement of what's right in front of their face. It's a hard thing, and especially for those again. For me, when I left the church, it was like when I found out like I didn't have to do it, I was like, oh, thank God! It was like such a relief. But for other people, when they find out it's not true, it is heartbreaking. Their entire sense of reality and truth and comfort is all shaken up. It's a hard process. So for some people, like, hearing the truth is really not welcomed at all. Yeah. But I think it's important to keep speaking.
Well, and it's been fun for me because I've always been kind,
Mm-hmm.
but it was from a protection. Like I'll say the right things so that I don't upset anyone. And so now as I'm speaking, it feels like that masculine's coming online. And then the feminine, not from a place of protection, but a place of choice. Like I'm choosing kindness and I'm choosing fiery at the same time. So it's like masculine and feminine together,
Yeah.
but it's brand new to me. And so I'm like, I might get this wrong. I don't know how to do this. I didn't get to practice when I was 5. Like that's ideally, I got to practice this in a sandbox over a dump truck or something, not, over these big topics that can impact and hurt people. Like my desire is never to hurt, and my desire, like, to stop harm. Sometimes I need to speak truth that for some people feels like I'm attacking them.
Yeah. Yeah. Because to speak out against something that someone believes in feels personal.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So I want to hear, Teresa, with your understanding. So around the nervous system and trauma, how that is formed. Um, so if there's a person that is raised in the culture of where there's a lot of conditioning, a lot of control, a lot of desire to obey, um, like what can you describe it from a nervous system perspective? Like what's happening as far as stress responses or trauma responses or the impact of somebody's self-esteem or when it's based on obedience or worthiness, but
Yeah.
then it's just normalized because it's your neighbors, it's the people coming over, the visiting teachers that are smiling, that they have the friendly face on. And so yeah, anything you want to share about that?
Yeah. So systems like that, I think, don't have a lot of tolerance for real emotions. They don't have a lot of tolerance for negative emotions. It's kind of like this system that's like we've got to be positive and this is how we have to do. So there's a lot of overriding. And I think that um, kids who grow up in systems like that tend to have parents who are trying to get the kids to be in line all the time. So, a kid, like, for example, someone I knew, like in the Mormon church, for example, it's really common that you want to be perceived as having like the perfect family. You want the kids to all be reverent, right? We're taught that in like sunbeams, right? Like be reverent and quiet and all that kind of stuff. So it's again, suppress, suppress, suppress. Your emotional needs aren't accepted or okay. Yeah, and again, every family's different. I think there are healthy people within some of these systems, but I think they're rare. I think more often than not. I have one client who had shared that their family was perceived as the perfect family. They had a nickname about their family, but inside the family there were so many cracks. There were so much dysfunction. The father was incredibly rigid and harsh, and the mother was just trying to hold it all together, and she was falling apart, and so she'd had meltdowns, and then as soon as somebody showed up, like they'd put on the mask and present as totally fine, and it was so disconnected. And because everybody had to be perfect and everybody had to be fine, there was no space for anyone to not be okay. And when you're not okay is not held and it's just shoved down, you're told that like those feelings aren't okay, they're not acceptable. And so you continue to shove down feelings, shove down feelings, shove down feelings. And when I was a kid, my parents, good parents, they loved me. But as most people in this world don't know how to deal with emotions. So if I had a negative emotions, like if I was afraid, if I was, if I was angry, if I was disagreeable, my mom would shame me about it. It was like, well, put that away. Like, I don't want to see that. That's not acceptable. Like, you can't have that. And especially in my fear, I really needed somebody to hold me in my fear and to help me work through that and to help me feel safe again. And I didn't get that. I got sort of like, I got abandoned. And I would say even for like some Mormon families, they'll basically say like, if you have a problem, go pray. If you have a problem, go read the scriptures. If you have a problem, like go somewhere else for that safety. And so I think that sort of just lets people know that their natural feelings are not okay. And it becomes, again, this constant disconnection. Which again, that's not like that's small t trauma, right? Like that's trauma we don't really talk about, but it's pervasive. It's the breeding ground for chronic ailments, chronic illnesses, all that kind of stuff, because all that stuff that's shoved down is going to try to get your attention somehow. It's still there. It's still brewing. But we're disconnected from it. We can't feel it. So it has to, like our brain can pick up on it and be like, oh, there's something not right here. And it can turn on a really loud symptom to try and get your attention about that. And also I think from the nervous system perspective, that would relate to like being in freeze. You know what I mean? Like you've got this thing or this emotion or this feeling coming up and you're not supposed to acknowledge it. So you have to shove it back down. And so your system contracts and goes into like more of a freeze state. There's like something called functional freeze where you can sort of walk around in the world and you seem fine, but really inside your body's tight and contracted. And, I have clients who their whole lives, they've just had like, like headaches and all this kind of stuff where their musculature has just been in like this contracted state. And it's that bracing, it's that sort of functional freeze state that they've lived in. And it can affect your physical body. It can affect your relationships. It can affect all kinds of things. And you just don't feel well. You don't feel like you said, Wendy, like there's a difference in your vitality then versus now, yeah, you just don't get to be authentically you. Does that speak to that? Like there's also there's so many different like expressions of this too. Like you have some households where there's a massive authoritarian structure, like the father is the authoritarian, and to the point that kids can be really scared. So if you're in a system like that, you can be in a chronic state of fight or flight. So lots of high sympathetic, like lots of anxiety, lots of fear, stuff like that. And that is also really bad because that suppresses your immune system, and then you're more likely to get different, illnesses because, you get sick all the time. As a kid, I had chronic sore throats and, tonsillitis and all that kind of stuff because I was in fight or flight all the time. So, yeah. And then you have the opposite of that, which is the families that are very disconnected. They don't make eye contact. There's not any attunement. They emotionally abandon the kids all the time. And then they go more into the dorsal shutdown state, which is everyone just kind of does life, but they're just checked out. They're dissociated. They're not present at all, that kind of stuff. And that's actually the hardest one because when you're in dorsal, that dorsal state basically means there is no hope. Like that is the nervous system state of last resort. You know what I mean? Like if that means you can't fight something, you can't flee something, the only protection you have is to completely disconnect and shut down. So it's a kind of a hopeless place. People in that state will experience a lot of depression, lack of motivation. They'll struggle to function in life and, keep their house clean, stuff like that.
Which is curious because, and I don't know what the statistic is, and I don't know where it lands presently, but it has been said that the Wasatch Front has more women on antidepressants than anywhere else in the nation.
Mm.
And, that kind of lends to this idea that you're on someone else's errand and that you're to completely disconnected from your own experience. It's almost like you've been denied your own sovereign exploration as a human being, that you've been corralled into someone else's agenda, which actually in my book, my literal book that I wrote, Adrenal Fatigue, is being on someone else's agenda and being disconnected from your own passion, your own desires, your own gifts, your own essence.
Yep.
And so it creates some of that depression that you're talking about. I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Hopefully relating into this, and I'm not cutting us off from anything else in that area that we were just talking about. But I am curious if someone who is just starting to realize that they've been disconnected from that emotional body and they're not really super aware of their nervous system, like what would you suggest for them to start onboarding some of those functions?
Yeah, so it's a slow process. Like for people that come to me that are in that kind of place, usually reconnection is kind of scary, right? Like when they drop into the body, they can be like, "Oh my God, what's going on in here?" So it's slow. So I always do psychoeducation first. I always teach people about their nervous system. I teach people, what sensations are about, so that they have kind of this understanding that as soon as they tap into stuff, what it's going to feel like, why, and so that they're not afraid of it. So it's about sort of like creating a foundation of understanding and context. Context is one of the opposing aspects of trauma. So people who don't have context about something, who don't have enough understanding about something, can be traumatized because they just didn't get enough understanding. So being trauma informed means you give a lot of context about stuff. So I teach all of that stuff so they know what it is that they're dealing with. And then you just start with short moments of just checking in, and it can be, you can start with doing some different nervous system regulation tools, which will start communicating somatically to the body to kind of maybe wake it up a little bit, and you start, just having an awareness of like maybe even the periphery of your body. And then you go from periphery to sort of more inside the body. There's a really cool exercise that Peter Levine does. He's a somatic experiencing. He's the one who created somatic experiencing, and which is a modality for trauma resolution. And he has people just start he'll be like, you start tapping your hand, and you'll be like, oh, this is my hand. Like my hand belongs to me. And you let yourself just feel like the sensation of that. And you do that like all over different parts of your body. And it helps you understand that you have this body boundary and that inside this body is, felt sense of all this kind of stuff. But it's a slow process, one little bit at a time. And everyone's going to have to sort of approach this in their own way. I'm very much about like what works for you, not what works for, like a rote sort of instruction for someone. And yeah, that's kind of how I'd get started with it.
I like that. For one thing that, and maybe you've tried some things in this area, but I've just started a deep body cleanse.
Mm.
And so like I am super accountable for what's in my body
Mm-hmm.
and being super in tune with every ache and every alert from my body to the smallest thing so that I start to ask it. And that's why I've been using my own book for a lot of this because I'm just in that place of, okay, even today I was about ready to go on a hike and my pointer finger is just like, it's like twitching. I'm like, what is going on here? And so that's when I use my book to ask questions because that's kind of how I enter the body. It's almost like I have to understand it cognitively
Mm-hmm.
because I've been so disconnected from my body. In fact, that's why, again, why I wrote the book is because I wanted to communicate with my body because I don't feel the sensations in my body.
Yeah.
And now I start to feel prickly when I almost get hit by another car. And I feel like I'm starting to onboard all of these new sensations, like what is this ache in my knee and what's coming up in my belly and what it's interesting that I've been doing this work for over 20 years and I've written a book on healing your emotions, but I've never actually been so more in tune with my body than I am now. And it's something that it has been a difficult work for me. I can articulate the emotions.
Yeah.
I can give them voice. I know how another person would feel. So I have deep empathy, but I literally, my body is not where I've gotten the information.
Yeah.
So I love what you're teaching here about getting in to there and start feeling this inner verse. I mean, if you
Yeah.
give the
Interverse. I love it.
cells and the tissues and the bones and the organs and the
Mhm.
and all of it is just such a whole universe inside of us that I feel like in the church I didn't have access to. Like I was protecting it, afraid to touch it, afraid to feel anything that didn't feel good. And it's just at my age, I would think that would have more mastery about what's going on deep inside
Yeah.
my body.
Yeah, but you know what I love about what you're saying is you're talking about your body as if it's this amazing place to explore about you're like this whole universe and like you're excited about it. And I that's amazing that you have that safety, that almost joy about like what can I find in here? Because that's what is going to actually help you connect in a really easy, safe way. And I have clients that are like this whole thing is terrifying. I can't drop in here at all. And so you have to demystify it and sort of give people like I wish everybody had that feeling of like, wow, like, because that's actually what actually reverses the pain signals and all of the chronic illness stuff is when people can finally drop into their body from that place of fascination. Like it is a wonder in here.
Mm.
And everything like I'm feeling in my body is just giving me information. And that's all it is. And I don't have to fix it or do anything. I just have to notice it and just reconnect and bring my presence to it. And so you have the best attitude about that. And like that's exciting because yeah, there's so much for you to explore in there.
Well, the curiosity is the thing,
It
right?
is. It
Getting
is.
curious. For me, it used to be that my body was just this thing and I have to put up with it and I have to suffer through it.
Yeah.
And besides all the feminine criticism that I offered about being saggy or freckly or whatever
Yeah.
else, and now it's like my best friend, and we're
Yeah.
communicating all the time, especially because I'm single and I have a lot of alone times, like me and her name is Guinevere. My body.
That's awesome.
We're talking often, and I'm like, "How you feeling today? What's going on over here on this side? And are you out of
Yeah.
place? Do you need an adjustment?" And we just like we're best buddies now.
Awesome. I love that so much. So cool. Yeah. What do you think made you be able to feel that way, to have the curiosity? What inspired or sparked the curiosity for you?
It was so many people asking me, "So where do you feel that in your body?" I'm
Mm.
like, I don't. I'm not feeling anything in my body right now. But I did many years ago, probably right at the time that I left the church, I did start to love my body and to just accept Um, like look in the mirror just naked, which naked was like forbidden.
Oh,
Church,
yeah.
that's what I made it be. And I would just look at it and accept every piece and part of it and honor and acknowledge this is mine.
Yeah.
This is not God's loaner. It's like me. It's a reflection of me in this incarnation. And these are my eyes, and these are my teeth, as crooked as they may be. And this, but I embraced it like it was my child.
Yeah.
Because I heard the dialogue about how I was communicating to myself. Unfortunately, I have four daughters. Not unfortunately, I have four daughters. Unfortunately, I gave this pattern to my four daughters to be critical about their body too, because unintentionally they got the message that we can't gain weight and we can't do this, we can't do that. And so I fostered this disconnect from the body. And so it's been little things here and there that I'm like, okay, I can connect even more. And so this cleanse that I'm on, literally, it is just it's 14 days of just being super hyper observant, even to what lotion I'm putting on.
Wow.
So that I can get reconnected. It's like parasites out, worms out, mold out, fungus out. Everything is informing us all the time. And sometimes we get these mixed messages about what's really talking, because parasites actually have
Mm.
they're an entity. They have their own
Yeah.
intelligence. And so that's kind of where I'm just this week. It's interesting that we're talking about it just this week, because now it's like I'm clearing out the vessel so that I know what it feels like to totally inhabit this body of mine.
Yeah.
Teresa, we like to finish up with what to do now. Like, we like to bring awareness for the first portion of the podcast, talk about that and how it shows up in adulthood. And then the third portion of our podcast, we like to introduce things to do, things that people can walk away, whether it's practices, journaling prompts, new techniques, new exercises, anything you want to share around that.
Yes. So one thing I'll say is, like, I'm a big proponent of education. So if there's anyone out there who has been coping with chronic illness of any kind, so if it's chronic fatigue syndrome, if it's fibromyalgia, chronic pain conditions that haven't really had a great diagnosis, even if it's like a lot of people who have like a lot of back pain, even if they do have some structural issues, there are ways that you can sort of repattern your brain to turn off some of those pain signals if they're not necessary. I'm trying to think about other, like, digestive issues, all the kinds of ailments or syndromes out there. There's a great book called The Way Out by Alan Gordon, and it gives you the foundational understanding of the mind-body connection and how to start working with some of these issues. The book talks about, he uses the term pain because they've done a lot of studies on pain, but they're doing more studies on some of these other ailments just so they have data to prove that this is actually, relevant and it actually works. But you can substitute whatever your symptom is with the word pain, and it's still relevant to how the mind body system works. So I would encourage people to just read that book, just to have it on hand, because at some point everyone's going to have a neuroplastic condition in their life, and to just have the information and understand what that is gives you so much more power. And then as far as, like, I don't know, some of the things that I tell people when I first start working with them is, we are so self-critical and we approach ourselves as if we need to fix ourselves. And so really, you don't need to fix yourself. There's nothing wrong with you. I always tell people, like, if there's one thing that you can do, just don't make yourself wrong for like anything. And I know that sounds so weird, especially anyone who's grown up in a high demand fundamentalist religion, because we are all about fixing ourselves and we're wrong for this and we're wrong for that. But when you can start turning towards yourself with that kindness and compassion and give yourself so much grace for all the things. It doesn't matter. I tell people, like, if you are having a bad flare up, or you're having a really hard symptom day, or you feel like you did the wrong thing, or you did something that caused a flare up, don't make yourself wrong for that. If your nervous system states in, high activation or low activation, don't make yourself wrong for that. Like, just show up exactly where you are, with that kindness, with that understanding, with that compassion. And that's enough. Like, I've gotten to the place in my own healing where I use mindfulness a lot, and I use it in a way that I studied mindfulness before I got sick. I did not understand mindfulness. It wasn't until I did the pain reprocessing therapy training that I really got what mindfulness was, because he uses it in the most beautiful way. And mindfulness is simply paying attention without judgment, without the need to fix or control. It's just your pure presence. And, and it's magical. And so if all you can do is just notice, oh, okay, I'm having this sensation, or I'm having this feeling, I'm in this nervous system state today, or I'm even having this thought. Some people have a lot of racing thoughts where they're just going round and round and round. And you can just notice, like, oh, well, there's that thought. And that's okay. I don't have to fix that thought. I don't have to chase that thought. I don't have to corral that thought. Like, it just is. And then the thought moves on. And then you have another thought that comes. And then that thought's okay. And the more you start to practice this thing of, like, not needing to control it, not needing to judge it, you disconnect from the conflict, being in conflict with it, which also creates this weird attachment thing that you have to things. And then life just moves through, and you come back into that rhythmic nature. Like, that's what sort of like recreates your rhythm. And like, when I do this with myself, um, I'll notice that my system starts to regulate immediately. Just like, if there's something negative happening to me, I don't fix it. I just notice it. And then my body will start to let go, and my body will start to release. Because at some point I've been in some state of contraction or some level of protection, because that's just what our systems do naturally. And then all of a sudden it'll just soften up, and I'll move on with my day. And whatever was kind of bugging me or sitting there is now moved on, and it's no longer there. So it's a practice that takes time, but to just start gently paying attention to yourself without the need to fix or make wrong or judge or whatever. And I know that seems kind of silly, but it really is. It's very powerful.
Well, it seems like what you're explaining is like not giving shame, not allowing shame to be the gatekeeper of what you're experiencing. Like, when you say something's wrong with me, that's like such a shame tone.
Yes.
And instead of saying, oh, I'm experiencing this right now, what is it I need? Or what is it speaking to me? Or can I just observe it? Can I just go, I
Yeah.
see you, and be, so I love this, that you're explaining between shame versus presence, and
Yeah.
trading shame in for presence.
So those are my simple things. And if people, want to try to touch into their body a little bit, meaning, you can start doing like little body scans, just like quick, easy body scans, or just, again, noticing like the periphery of your body. Starting to, just put your hand on your other hand, hands together, and just noticing what that feels like. Something really easy. Because again, for some people, that's going too quickly is a little bit difficult.
Those are really good. Like, I think I love the simplicity and how powerful those can be. Like, a lot of times we are like, oh, that's too easy. Like, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I want the thing where I really have to dig in.
Yeah.
Give me something hard to do.
Press these
Exactly.
5 buttons, tap my head, and jump up and down 17 times. And
Yeah, and there's a process, and sometimes that's the stuff you need to do for a while, and that's okay. But I've realized that, like, I have a busy life, and to stay regulated actually is not as hard as I thought it was. It's not like you don't have to work that hard to heal. And I remember when I first I heard that message. I was working with a practitioner at the time who basically said, "What if healing doesn't have to be hard?" And I was like, "What?" This is after I was doing like 5 hours of meditation every day and like trying so hard to heal myself. And I was like, oh, actually, that feels a lot better. Like, when I feel into my body and I'm like, I don't have to do all this stuff, I don't have to effort, like, my whole stomach relaxed. I was like, oh, wow, what do you know? And since then, I have worked a lot less hard at healing. And
Mm.
it's like I've had more um, more progress than I ever did when I was doing 5 hours of meditation and tracking every supplement I took and all the things. So, yeah.
So I have a question. When as I was doing a lot of healing for myself, it seemed like it was really important that I needed to identify like what was missing in childhood, what caused the harm, or what was omitted unknowingly, the covert or overt or whatever. And then so that I could heal it in me. And that felt like one prong. And there was a second prong of like, okay, now that I having kids, I also want to be aware of what to do different. It was beneficial to me to heal, to identify what went wrong. But
Yeah.
often I didn't know what to do different because my experience was the wrong way, like the harmful way. And so on your journey of like discovering what was missing or what harmed you, what message would you give to those with parents or that are parents with kids that are trying to benefit the generation that's coming up? Like what would yeah, anything you want to speak to with that?
Yeah. So the education part is important, like finding out and understanding, identifying and seeing it. But then there's the whole other part of like, how do I do it different? And to do it different, you have to be able to manage your own internal responses because like there's nothing harder than being a parent. I had my partner's grandkids came over this weekend and I'm not a parent and they're 2 and 5 and it was hard. They're such amazing kids, like the best kids ever, but it was hard. And you realize that they're like, having to be responsible for young kids. And there's so much pressure on parents to make sure your kids turn out well, make sure they understand what, consequences are. Like, you want them to be good humans in the world. And, and there's just so much involved in that. It takes so much energy. And so to sort of shift patterns, you have to be able to go in and keep paying attention to what's happening inside of you so that you can regulate yourself so that you can keep showing up as regulated as possible. And the other thing I'll say, okay, so when I was like, learning about attachment and stuff like that, you only need to be attuned about 30% of the time to be a good enough parent, to raise good kids, right? That seems really low. But the key with this is that you can mess up 70% of the time, but you just need to make sure that you are offering repair when you do as much as possible. So you have lots of room to make mistakes as long as you can reach out and say, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I was feeling some big things here, and account for it and offer the apology." That's what was missing in my childhood experiences. My parents didn't know how to do that. And so big things would happen and then we just pretend like it never happened. So, you can make mistakes as a parent and that's actually what grows healthy attachment is those repair processes. And that's what teaches your kids that they can have greater toleration for, oh, something big happened or somebody got upset or something fell apart, whatever. And oh, it came back together and we now have reconnection. Like, because every moment where there's a rupture, in a relationship, whether, with your kids and stuff, they feel disconnection and that disconnection starts to feel scary and their nervous system starts to react. But if they understand that after disconnection, now we come back into reconnection, their nervous system starts to trust like, oh, okay, there's space for this. So that's what I'd say is like, there's a lot of really cool parenting books out there. There's one person called The Attachment Nerd that I think has written a really cool book that I can't remember the name of. I think if you just look up attachment nerd, you'd be able to find her. But just being able to read books like that to understand the attachment system, how your kids get wired for for connection and the ability to self-regulate in a healthy way is good. But also just know that you have a lot of leeway there. You don't have to be perfect.
I love that. I think, and I just broke this down because this is what it kind of comes down for me is that trauma really isn't the instance that happened. It's the coping strategies that we onboarded in the absence of repair.
Yes, 100%.
Because when we do, and we can go back as parents and repair that, we're acknowledging this happened and it shouldn't have happened this way. And so I'm going to apologize. I'm going to take ownership. You're teaching your kids how to take ownership for their behavior
Yeah.
by being an adult who takes ownership for their behavior and say, this is how it should have happened. This is how I'm going to do it in the future. That child is not going to be in one of our offices
Yeah.
or one of our programs or one of our in the future, because it was repaired when it happened. So I love that you bring that up, is that lack of repair equals adult trauma in the
Yeah.
future.
It does. Because you're stuck in disconnection. You've never come back into connection.
Yeah.
There aren't many of us that know how to do a real healthy repair process.
Yeah.
Um,
Agree.
so yeah.
And
Well, and
that's
within the Mormon church, just bringing it back to that, they're taught, like we're taught how to repent to Jesus and to make things right with the other person. And that's kind of it. There's not like there's so much to a repair that it would be useful. Like if
Yeah.
that was found in general conference or one of the
Right.
in the Alma chapter 4, if they talked about rupture and repair, like how healthy that would make Mormonism. Just like one verse about that, like would go a long way.
Yeah.
well, and to acknowledge that repair requires a broad emotional bandwidth. And so no wonder it's difficult for us to repair, because we're pretty much stunted in our emotionality.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're afraid that repair means we're afraid to admit a mistake means that we're weak, or it means that our kids are going to see us as um fallible or whatever. But like that's what we want. Like
Right.
because then that gives them permission to make mistakes. It gives them permission to be human,
Yeah.
you know.
And it removes the layers of shame
Yeah.
so that we can be present. We
Yep.
look at that, oh, I didn't handle that well. I need to go fix that, instead of, oh my gosh, I'm such a loser. I didn't handle that well. And what are they going to think of me? And I just have to shove it down because I can't think about this anymore, and then shove it down into the body until it becomes a symptom.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. And that repair process grows your trust. It grows your trust in your connection with that other person. It grows your trust in life, like all of it.
The safety, people
Yes.
feel safe around you, and you're more of a truth teller,
Hmm.
all of it.
Yeah. So yeah, there could be a whole episode on rupture and repair and
Yes.
parenting and all that kind of stuff. So it's all really cool.
So when Teresa, when we started the episode, you were introducing yourself, you were talking about self-trust, that you knew you would figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that repair, like you were repairing a relationship with yourself
Mm. Yeah.
at
Hmm.
the same time, right? Even though, and then you said you got to a place where you trusted life. So there was like a repair with life too that took
Yes.
place.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I learned that I could tolerate all the chaos inside. I learned that I could meet all of this, and this wasn't going to take me offline anymore, because that's what kept happening. Like all the stuff would rise up inside, and it would be like chaotic, and I didn't know how to deal with it, and so I'd have to shut myself down, and I couldn't engage with life anymore. There was nothing shuts you down faster than fear, and I didn't know how to work with my own fear. And so, that was a big piece for me, is finally learning how to develop the tolerance and the safety and the trust to manage this, and know that it would be just a wave. You have levels of activation that'll come up in your system, and they'll come up like this, and then they'll go down. When you can just be with them, that's why presence is so important. Because what happens for people is they'll feel the thing, and they're like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and they'll panic at this point, and they'll shove it back down, or they'll run away from it. You know what I mean? And they never get to see it complete itself. And when you can hold this anchored space and just be like, oh, okay, I'm curious, that's interesting, wow, it's going up, oh, and now it's going down, okay, now it's just discharged, and now I've come back to safety again. It's almost like a rupture and repair process in your own system. And then you're like, oh, okay, I can tolerate that. Like that's like energy like expands and contracts all the time. I can witness it. I don't have to freak out about it. It just is. And look, now I'm safe again. I'm on the other side and I can move forward in life. And if the next wave comes, I'll manage the next wave. But what would happen for me is like the wave would come, it would crash me down and I would be like, I can't. Like I'd be suicidal after I'd have levels of activation that would come up in my system, lots of fear and panic. And I just didn't think I could handle life at all. And once I learned how to do that, it was like, well, there's nothing that can stop me. Like I'm safe in this world because I know how to manage me. I know how to be in connection with myself.
To me, that just sounds like such a more comprehensive, more empowering program than this constant worry about, am I worthy?
Yep.
Am I good enough? Have I done enough? Will God rescue me from this feeling?
Yeah.
It literally puts it back into your hands to be in charge of this experience that you're having in this dimension with this body.
Yeah.
And these ideas about we have to take a sacrament to cleanse ourselves or use the atonement, that was all kinds of confusing for me. And to have all these arbitrary rules that I can only be worthy and be in God's favor if I'm compliant. All of that is just so circusy and chaotic for me.
Yeah.
When I hear that you have a nervous system and this is how you can process your trauma, and you need to breathe and feel your emotion, that makes comprehensive, doable sense to me.
Yeah.
And this whole religious mumbo jumbo, to me, like, we have not once talked about Jesus and God and repentance and sin and all these heavy, yucky words and ideologies. And it just feels like there's this fresh, clean understanding when you get, like you said, educated on the being of your body and what these emotions and feelings feel like.
Yeah. And you're no longer outsourcing your power to anyone else. It's,
Yes.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it
So
puts it all back into your field
yeah.
and responsibility and empowered too. Just feels like I get to live this life happier and not so afraid because I know how to manage what's going on inside of me.
Yeah. 100%.
And it's not more prayers, and it's not more Jesus, and it's not more temples, and it's not more compliance, and it's not more prophets, and it's not more Bibles and scriptures and all of this stuff. It's actually tuning in and being present and listening and getting myself educated.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot simpler than people realize. But sometimes you have to go through the complex and chaotic, and I don't know, everybody has their own way. So
Yeah,
wherever you are, wherever anyone is on their journey on this process, like just keep taking the next step and the next step. It's all okay. It's all part of it. Like,
trust in yourself and trust life. That's the message.
yep, and let it be messy. Let yourself make mistakes. Let yourself be like, oh, well, that wasn't the right thing. Well, okay, that now you just know one more thing that wasn't the right thing, which gets you closer to the thing that might be the right thing or that might be more resonant for you. That's all it is. That's all it means.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Teresa. We'd love to. Can you share where people can find you if they want to work with you or follow you?
Yeah. So my website is monarchintegrativecoaching.com, and I've got an Instagram at Monarch Integrative Coaching. I've got a YouTube channel where I share some different videos on, mind body stuff, and I've got some different guided meditations on there for people who want to practice somatic tracking exercises, stuff like that. Yeah, that's how you can find me.
Your other podcast with Bill.
Oh, yes. Yes. I do a podcast with Bill Real called the Almost Awakened Podcast. So you can find that on Spotify, and it's under his handle of Mormon Discussions on his YouTube channel as well.
What do you guys generally cover on that podcast?
Oh, all the things. We've done some stuff on the Mind Body Connection. We've done stuff on relationships. We have done stuff on religious trauma. So we're just kind of, I don't know, seeing what comes to mind, what seems resonant. And at some point, I think we will be moving that podcast over to its own sort of space. And then we might branch out even more. So we'll see.
Excited for all your things.
Awesome. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you for like I've loved your guys' podcast. I think you're doing amazing stuff. And I get so excited when I see people talking about this stuff. Like it needs to be shared. People need to hear this. And every person who's talking about it is inviting one new person into, this new possibility. So you guys are doing awesome, awesome stuff.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you for listening in. We hope there were takeaways that help you begin to unbind the deep programming that no longer serves you and remember more of who you truly are. If you'd like to connect more deeply, come join us on Facebook on our page called Unbinding. It's a space for real conversation, reflection, and community. And if this episode resonated, please share it with someone who might need it. Like, subscribe, and comment below. We'd love to hear what's moving for you. Until next time, take care of your heart and keep unbinding.